when you get to be our age, there's not a lot to be afraid of anymore. There's, you don't care what people think anymore. It's just, I wish that people could learn that lesson when they're younger, that it's really not worth it to live someone else's life. Live your own life.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 211. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have a beautiful conversation with Judie and Eldon. It's really inspiring how amazingly open they are and unashamed about talking about all sorts of things.
Yeah, I think sort of the tagline I think for this episode would be one of the quotes Judie has, which is your life doesn't stop at age 60.
Yeah.
And they talk about like they've been married quite a few times between the two of them. And Eldon was a minister for 20 years. And one day he just woke up and basically gave it up. And like they talk about previous relationships and what everything has looked like for them. And then how they've started navigating non-monogamy the last couple of years. And it's just, it's an amazing conversation, and we're just really excited to get it out there. And so thank you, Eldon and Judie, for coming on, sharing your story, and being super vulnerable and open with us.
Yes. Before we jump into the interview, we do have a couple of announcements. First up, a huge thank you to our Patreon community. We're so incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. If you're out there looking for community, we highly recommend checking it out. We have a monthly Q&A. We have ongoing MeWe chat groups as well as men and women's groups. If you'd like more information, go check out our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the Patreon button. Also listed there are all of the dates for the December calls.
If you're looking for a community, but the Patreon group doesn't seem like you, we have a little less commitment than the monthly $5.
Yes.
It would be the monthly virtual meet and greet.
Right, the meet and greets. Come join us.
So we're doing 2 of these each month now. We did 2 of them in November. We've got 2 of them coming up here in December. One of them is next Wednesday.
Nope.
Next Thursday?
Yes.
Nailed it. I just knew it was next week. On December 9th.
Yes.
That's the important thing. It's December 9th. And the next one after that is December 17th, which is the following Friday.
Both of those are from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, and they're open to anyone. So our requirement is that you need to be open-minded and non-judgmental to come and join the meet and greets.
And be super awesome and fun.
Oh, yeah.
But that's just a given. If you're listening to this show, you're all of these things. So come and join us and the other people who have helped make these amazing events. We hope to see you there next week.
To sign up.
To sign up. How do you get to be there next week, Emma?
To sign up, again, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, click on the community events tab, and there you'll find all of the information to sign up for the virtual meet and greets. While you're there,
there's other information, Emma.
Yes, you'll also see the in-person meet and greets. So we do have an in-person meet and greet scheduled right now in New Orleans on February 7th. So you can sign up now for that. And we're working on additional events. They will be coming very soon.
But we do have one that is on the calendar. We know when it's happening. We know where it's happening. We just don't have all of the details to announce yet. But it is going to be on February 12th in New Orleans. It is going to be at let's call it a private pool venue.
Yes.
Intimate. That is intimate.
Small.
It is clothing optional. It is a really, really awesome space, and we're super excited about this. It's going to be, we're going to limit the number of people who can join us because, well, the space isn't that big.
Right.
So it's going to be about 34 people plus Emma and me. Mm-hmm. And so if that's something that sounds interesting to you, if it sounds like an awesome weekend in New Orleans plus a little bit of pool time and some awesome people for like a meet and greet, head over to our website, sign up for our mailing list. We will be announcing the details on this in probably the next week or so. And if you're signed up for the mailing list, you will be one of the first people to know exactly what's going to happen and you'll have first shot at signing up.
Yes, and it's pretty clear on our website where you can sign up for our mailing list. Just go check it out.
Yes, and the last final thing is just a reminder, if you are getting out in the world and meeting people in person, we would highly recommend getting tested for STIs so you can have informed conversations about your STI status and your partner's STI status confidently.
Yes.
The way Emma and I do this is we use a service called stdcheck.com. If you've listened to the show before, you know we use the service for the last few years. We love it, and it is fast, simple, easy, which are synonyms. It is affordable. And it's discreet. So if you're like a little bit anxious about getting tested for STIs because you don't want to have that weird conversation with your doctor, or you think it might be super expensive, it's about $130. If you use the code, the links on our website, you save $10. You help support the show, and you don't have to have any uncomfortable conversations with anybody.
Right.
You just show up, they take your blood, they don't care what the hell it's for, and they test you, and you get your results in a day or two emailed to you.
Yes. Go check it out.
You can find it in the resources tab or in the show notes of this episode and every other episode we've published for the last 3 years.
Yes, it's all there. It's pretty easy to find.
And while you're on our website, please reach out to us. Let us know what you think of us, of the show. Let us know who you are, what your journey looks like, and perhaps you could join us today, tomorrow, next week. Like Judie and Eldon.
Oh,
they could come on the show. That's what I was trying to say. You can join us.
I thought you were talking about like joining the meet and greets or Patreon.
Well, they can do that too, but you can also come on the show and share your story. Judie just reached out to us via email, and we made it happen. So we hope to hear from all of you, and we hope you enjoyed this conversation with Judie and Eldon. I'm going to stop talking.
Yes, let's go. Let's go talk to them. Well, welcome to the show, Judie and Eldon. It's so nice to meet both of you, and we're excited to dive in and hear a little bit more about both of you. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, do you mind introducing yourselves for the listeners, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, I'm Judie, and my husband is Eldon, and I'm 60 years of age, and he is 73. And that was one thing that attracted me to maybe come on the show, is because most of the podcasts I've listened to on your show are mostly people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I thought, well, maybe we need a more mature perspective. Just because I haven't listened to all 200 episodes, but I've listened to a lot of them. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're probably the oldest people you've had on.
I believe so.
I believe, you're probably pretty close. I'd have to go back and look, but you are right that we haven't had as much of a representation from an older crowd, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And, I understand that because it's hard for us to get people our age interested in what we're talking about here. We live in a building of people who are over age 60. And we, in talking with people, try to get them interested in, other relationships. And they're like, well, don't you have a wife? Don't you have a husband? I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not a problem. And they're like, well, we're not interested. We don't want to talk about it. And so I wonder about these people. Do they think that just when you become 60, you just don't have sex anymore, or you aren't interested in a relationship anymore? I mean, a lot of them, I think that's where they're at. And so I would like to reach out to those people, and I'm going to be giving them the link to this to listen to so that they can realize your life does not stop at age 60, Yeah. So.
Well, we love that attitude and that approach. How long have you two been together?
10 years.
Yes.
10 years?
Yes.
We've been married 10 years in August.
Well,
congratulations.
And both of us have been married before. I had been married twice before, and he had been married 4 times before, and none of those ever worked out. And so that seems like that was not the answer. Serial monogamy.
Right. So previous to being together, had either of you practiced non-monogamy in any form?
I had not, but he had. throughout his whole life, pretty much women have been throwing themselves at him. It's kind of a joke. I had only been with my husbands and that was it. But he had had lots of sexual experiences and a lot of other relationships during the past 20, 30 years or whatever. And so he had a lot more experience than I did with this. So when he sort of broached the subject of what do you think about this? Well, actually, it came up as we have a lot of discussions about science and different things. And we have been talking about evolutionary biology and how, maybe it's in our genes that we're not supposed to be monogamous. And so one day he decided to ask me, so if I had sex with someone else, would that offend you? And I said, well, it would depend on the situation, but I think probably that would be, I could get by with you doing that. And did you have something to say about that?
Well, yes. When I first started to talk to her about this, I thought, well, this could be a divorce or it could be the opposite of a divorce. And it turned out to be the opposite. She was extremely curious and she went on the internet and she found all the answers that she could find. We did not know about the word.
Well, he didn't know there was a word polyamory. He'd been doing it probably all his life, but didn't know there was a word for it. And I had heard it, but I didn't really know that much about it. So I did research. We watched some TED Talks. We read some articles, and we found your podcast. And your podcast was one of those that we listened to a lot of that really, gave us an idea of what was out there and what people were doing. And I said, well, yeah, I think I could learn to like this.
And how long ago was that you broached that conversation, Eldon?
That's only been a few months ago, hadn't it?
About 3 months ago.
More than that. His memory's not all that great. But a few months ago.
So it's been relatively new to your relationship.
Yeah, it's just been a few months, and but it's something he had been into for a long time, and so he kind of put it on hold when we got married, which I kind of felt bad about. But I didn't know about it until he decided to start telling me all of his experiences. And so we spent many, many, many hours talking and telling all of our past relationships, all of our past sexual experiences, all of our thoughts and attitudes about a lot of different subjects. And it really came to a place of, I guess I could call it an aphrodisiac, because when you become vulnerable with someone and you lay bare your soul and you're sharing all of your intimate thoughts, feelings, and things you thought you'd never share with anyone, that's sort of a bonding experience. And we just came to a point where we had shared everything we'd ever done or said or thought, and we still do. We have no secrets. Anything, like if we're even walking down the street and he sees a nice looking woman, he's free to say, oh, boy, I'd sure like to get next to that lady, and I'm like, yeah, wouldn't that be great? And so we can talk about that stuff. And it's very open and honest, and that it's caused us to be very closer than we've ever been. It's been the best thing we've ever done, because we're closer now after starting this than we were before.
Yeah, that's amazing. And have those conversations led to you two actually taking the steps to make it happen, or at this point,
yes.
Is it still okay?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Well, right now it just looks like dating other people. And so we tried a couple of websites, which was a total waste of money because we didn't ever really get anything out of them. And we just decided to join a local Facebook polyamory group for our city. And we joined that. And we have met quite a few people through that group and have had more success through that group, meeting people that are like-minded than we did on any of the websites. We'd pay for the websites and then nobody would ever write us back. But I've had dates with people from the group, and it's been really great. He's had a little bit more trouble than I have, but I have not had trouble finding dates.
Well, I haven't had trouble. I just haven't put myself out.
Yeah, he's not, even though this was really his idea, he's just not as much into getting out there and talking to people about it. And I said to him, things are not going to change. It's not going to become mainstream until we come out of the closet and start talking about it. And just like for the LGBT community, when they started to come out of the closet and they said, we're here and we exist and we're not going to be ignored, then things started to change for their community. And so I think this has to happen for the polyamorous community as well. So I will talk to anybody who will listen about it. But he's just really and truly, I will just talk to strangers about it. But he's a little bit more shy about talking to people about it. So I said, well, we're going to go out one day and I'll show you how it's done. The grocery store is a great place to get dates.
I didn't know that.
Because there's, you could walk up to someone who's looking at the coffee and say, excuse me, I was looking for a good brand of coffee. Can you recommend one? And they'll tell you their opinion and whatever. And I said, I think they have that at Starbucks. Would you like to go over to Starbucks with me? And all of our grocery stores here have a Starbucks in them. And so let's go over to Starbucks and sit down and have some of that coffee. And so we have a little mini date right there in the grocery store,
And that's actually happened? Like that worked?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. I love it. I love the putting yourself out there and being bold. Like that's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, confidence is important. People can smell blood in the water. If you are not confident and you're shy, it's much different than if you just put yourself out there and talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And Eldon, on your side, Judie mentioned that you mentioned that you've been a little more apprehensive to put yourself out there. But it like she said, like that, it was sort of your idea to bring this up. Like, are you able to talk a little bit about like why or what's causing your apprehension to kind of go for it?
Yes, religion.
Past religion.
I was a minister for 20 years, and one day I've been struggling with depression a lot. And one day in the bathroom in the morning when I was getting ready to go to work, I just looked up at the ceiling and I said, I don't believe there's anybody that hears my prayers. And so with that, I started getting out of religion. But I still find it very, very, very religious people. They have a hard time accepting my way of thinking because I have had a number of women and I've had affairs and I've enjoyed them. Not since I've been married to Judie, but with wives before, I would meet a woman and she would be attracted to me and I would be attracted to her. And we might have an affair that lasted a couple of years. But religious people are not in favor of that. They're very much against that type of behavior. And so I'm a little careful about who I say things to because I know that they will say some negative things.
And see, I could really care less. And I was also raised in a very conservative fundamentalist church, and I gave that up as well. And I really could care less what they think. And so that's why I will shock people, and I love to shock people. I love to talk to them about things that I know make them uncomfortable because I sort of see that as my lot in life is to challenge your perceptions. And so I don't mind making people uncomfortable.
Yeah, I love the dichotomy between the two of you on like the approach to that. And I guess like I understand too, like Eldon, like you're saying, like, obviously the religious community is not a fan of affairs, but also they're not a fan, right, of being open and honest, or, and ethical about it with, talking to your partner or other potential partners.
That's true.
And
that's true.
Actually, I made a podcast called Christian Polyamory, which explains to people that there's nothing in the Bible. If you want to keep your Christian faith and still be polyamorous, you can, because there's nothing in the Bible that would preclude one from having an ethical non-monogamous relationship. Because if you read the whole Old Testament, everybody had more than one wife. And, King Solomon had 1,000 wives and concubines. And so, you know what those concubines were for? Just for sex. And so how could they come along and say that that's wrong when that was clearly throughout the Bible how people lived? And so, so I made a podcast about that for those people.
Right. And I will admit, Emma and I are not as well versed on the Bible. Emma may be more than me, but I can understand the apprehension and the fear. And like you said, if you were a minister for many, many years, like how ingrained that is to you. Yeah. To be able to then just step out and say, well, I'm going to go for it and try to meet other people. And what's interesting is you had done that, but while married previously, and now that you're able to do that freely, it sounds like that's almost more difficult.
Well,
I think
I just want to be very, very careful and not do anything to offend Judie.
That would be hard to do.
And there are women that we have talked about and that I have gone to visit, and there's one, in fact, now that I would like very much to get to know her and know more about her. But these things take time. Some women perhaps are anxious to have sex, but I would say most women want to get to know you, want to know that they can trust you, that you will protect them and keep them safe, and that takes trust, and people talking to one another and getting to know each other and getting to know that they can trust each other. So it's a different. I think it's a difference between what women need and what men need.
For sure, 100%. And it sounds like your approach is you want to be the most trustworthy person you can be when you're getting to know these women, and so it's not a race for you.
And that can take time, right?
Yes, it can. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, the barrier is the ones that we have talked to in our building. We'd like to find someone that can visit with them in our building, because there are days when I'm gone all day long and he gets lonely at home by himself. So he needs someone to come up and visit with him while I'm gone. And so the ones that we have approached to try and do that, they're like, oh, no, I don't do anything like that. I'll pray for you guys for your marriage. And I'm like, so then a few days later, we're happy and having a good time, and they see us and they go, oh, everything must have worked out. And we go, there was nothing wrong to begin with. Well, I don't know what is wrong with you guys. Well, you wouldn't be looking around for someone else if everything was all right in your marriage. I'm like, no, you're absolutely wrong. I said, what is your favorite food? And they'll come up with something. They'll say steak. I'll say, okay, so if you like steak, that means you should eat steak for every meal, every day for the rest of your life, and not eat anything else, because that would mean you don't really love steak. But if I want a little cheesecake every now and then, that doesn't mean I don't like steak. Okay, so if I want to have a few other boyfriends or whatever you want to call them, that doesn't mean I don't love my husband. So trying to get across to them the concept that you're not cheating on your spouse. It's hard for them to understand.
There's no lying.
No lying.
There's no distrust. Everything is open and honest, and so whenever we're going to see someone else, we both know about it, and whenever she does go out and have Starbucks with somebody, or I'm very interested in what was said and what his reaction was. And there's sometimes I want to call him and say, now don't be afraid, partner. He's always saying, well, I'll call him up and tell him to do this. And I go, no, please don't do that.
I can handle this on my own. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And go ahead, Emma.
I was just going to say, Eldon, I'm curious, what was your, I guess you said you brought this up to Judie a handful of months ago. What was your motivation for doing that? Like what, I guess, or the catalyst for doing that? Because you've been together for 10 years and it's just now coming up, right?
Yes. I'm not sure exactly what.
I know exactly what it was.
What was it?
Okay, in 2016, he had prostate cancer and he had his prostate removed. And so, that's pretty much the death knell for sex. And so for about 5 years, we didn't do anything. And out of just respect for him, I never brought it up. I never talked about it because I figured, well, he can't, so I don't want him to make him feel bad. So we just never talked about it. Well, then he had a brain tumor and he had that removed. It was not cancerous, but it was pressing on his pituitary gland and his optic nerve. And he got some radiation treatments for that. Well, one of the side effects of that was that, the pituitary gland tells all your other glands to make hormones. And so because he had that radiation treatment on the pituitary, he was now not making all the hormones he should. So his testosterone just tanked. And so I had suspected that his testosterone was too low because he was sleeping all the time and didn't have any energy to do anything. So I asked our doctor to test it. And she tested it, and a normal testosterone should be between 500 and 1,000, and his was 2. And she said, "I've never seen anyone with a testosterone that low who's still alive." She said. So they started giving him the testosterone gel to rub on, and after a couple of months of rubbing that on, he started making some little comments to me that made me think he was feeling frisky. And then one day he said, "Well, do you want to go in the bedroom and fool around?" And I go, "Well, I didn't think you could." And he goes, "Well, we can work something out." So I said, "Well, I guess if lesbians can have sex without a penis, so can we." So we started experimenting with things and doing a lot of creative things we had never done before, which was really great. But that, I think, he then began, to worry that I was not getting what I needed from him. And I think that was a catalyst for him to suggest, maybe you should get a boyfriend because maybe I can't provide what you need. And I assured him that was not the case, but that was sort of how it started.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, after that, we began to investigate the possibility of having a surgery that would restore my sexual abilities. And we have had that scheduled now. It's scheduled for November the 1st. And after November the 1st, I will be able to have an erection.
Be fully functional again.
And as she says, fully functional again. So that is something that is kind of exciting in our lives.
So just for your listeners, if anyone experiences that, there are things that you can do. And there's a surgery you can get that's one day. You don't even have to spend the night in the hospital, and they put in implants, and it just fixes the problem. So.
And the Medicare has a policy that, because this is neuroscience, that they do cover the surgery. So yeah. I'm very happy with how things have turned out.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it sounds too like for some time you two have been able to enjoy sex while de-emphasizing the focus on like PIV, right? Like you said, Eldon, like I figure we can work something out. Like you have all sorts of different ways to give and receive pleasure that don't necessarily require that. And I guess how I mean, if you're comfortable talking a little bit about that, sounds like Judie, you have no problem. But
no problem. I want to tell you it's the best sex I ever had. So
well, go for it. Let's hear about it.
Okay, well, just what I tell him is it's not his fault because this is the way evolution did it. But evolution only cared about the man's pleasure because that's all that was required to get the seed planted in the womb was for the man to have pleasure. The evolution didn't care about the woman's pleasure. And so I said to him, well, honestly, very honestly, I never had an orgasm with either of my previous two husbands because regular sex just doesn't do it for me. You have to get in there with some kind of tool or fingers or something to hit the right spot. And just regular sex never did it for me. So that's why I say this is the best sex of my life, because it's hitting the right spot.
Yeah, that's huge. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
We bought about 3 different.
You don't have to go into too much detail on that, but we bought toys. We'll just say that.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, like you said, Judie, like this is the best sex you've ever had, and you don't need a penis for it. And I think that's just a fantastic message to put out there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, there's so many ways to provide and receive pleasure.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I love this conversation. And I guess, Eldon, on your side, like it sounds, the perspective was that you felt Judie wasn't getting something that you couldn't provide. And so you suggested this other alternative. But it also sounds like there's more to it than that. Then it's not just feeling inadequate in that way. Like there's a desire on your end to meet other people and have connections, and a desire on Judie's end to like meet and have connections beyond just sex. And it sounds like it's beyond just sex for the both of you.
That's right. That's correct.
Right. If I had to describe what I would like, it would be kitchen table poly, because I'd like to be able to invite someone over for dinner and play cards, and then they just spend the night. That would be sort of my ideal scenario. But we'll take whatever comes.
How about on your end, Eldon?
Yes, actually, that would be if we could find a couple that things could work out between the 4 of us. That would be the best thing I think that I could expect. That would be wonderful, but
that's hard to find. So we'll just see how it goes.
That may or may not happen. If I find someone that's interested in me and having a relationship with me, that'll be great. If not, it'll be great. Whatever.
It'll be fine. Whatever.
It's all going to be good.
Because underneath it all, we have each other, and so it's not like, oh, this relationship doesn't work out. Most people who are monogamous, if a relationship doesn't work out, they're just so despondent because now I don't have a relationship. Well, I always will have a relationship. So if any of these other relationships don't work out, I don't have to be too despondent because, we're still going to have each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, totally. Go ahead.
And I might say that I was married for 22, 32, 37. I was probably married for 40 years to different women. My first wife I was married to for 22 years. And it was very dissatisfying marriages. But I am the happiest married person now that I have ever been. And I am very, very, I enjoy our relationship, our ability to talk, our ability to be open and honest with each other. Our relationship just means everything to me, and I've very much enjoyed it. And of course, I also want to have friendship with other women, but our relationship has been fantastic. That's all I can say. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's all because I finally said, well, I've got to tell her about my history and and talk to about this stuff. By doing so, I opened a door that I did not know would be open, and she's been wonderful, and she stepped through that door, and she's been, when I told her about my experiences in the past, she became extremely excited about what her experience could be, and her research and her looking and her dating and doing things has really been wonderful for our relationship.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think, just thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah. And were you were you afraid to share this with her, Eldon? Like, I imagine, like you said, like, this is the best your relationship has ever been. But like, to me, that's a super scary thing to broach. Like you said, this is either the divorce conversation or the best thing that'll ever happen to us. And that's a big leap.
Yeah. It's vulnerable, right? Sharing everything from your past is very vulnerable.
Right. Yes. You're exactly right in your assumptions about what you're saying here.
Well, he had two conditions after he got divorced from all those other wives and was alone for a while. He said, if I get married again, it's going to be to someone, and they have to meet two criteria. One is that she has to be not narrow-minded about religion. And number two, has to be a deep thinker. That was the two criteria. And I'm happy to report that I fit those criteria. So we have always talked about, we've always been open because we both came from very religious, fundamentalist backgrounds. We both left that. And then we actually met in the Unitarian Universalist Church because trying to get some kind of community and have some kind of like-minded people, we found the Unitarian Church is very open. And you can be an atheist, an agnostic, a polyamorist, or whatever you want to be, and you can be a member there, and it's okay with everyone. And so that's where we met. And so we have come a long way from being very conservative to very open. And so I don't know why he even worried that I was going to not be accepting, because we're already on the liberal end of everything. So, there's very little that you could probably find that we could talk about that I would not be interested in talking about from a liberal perspective. And so I don't know why he was afraid, but anyway, I'm glad that he brought it out.
Yeah. And I was curious, you hadn't broached all of the details, but had you two talked about like the previous affairs and infidelities, or was that all new information in the last few months as well?
Some of it was new, not all of it. I knew about some of the things.
Okay.
He had shared some of them, but I don't know why he didn't feel like he could share all of them. I asked him to count up and tell me how many people he think he slept with in his life. and he could only estimate maybe between 15 and 20. But for me, see, I had not had any of that experience. When I was very disillusioned, because after I got out of high school and I went to 4 years of college, that was the best I ever looked in my whole life, those 4 years of college. And I got 0 dates those whole 4 years. And that's because I was shy, a little bit introverted. Didn't have self-confidence. I would never have talked about any of these things that I'm talking with you about today back then. So I had zero experience with people asking me out. Every relationship I've ever had, I had to initiate. But after I initiated it always went well. But it's just that I didn't have the experience that he had of these women just falling all over him. And even when he was a minister, people in his churches, women in his churches would even make it clear to him that they were willing to have sex with him. So, but I never had that experience. So,
something's telling me these church people aren't as religious as they want us to think they are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no such thing as we're the good people and you're the bad people. No, this is just, they all do. We're all people. Nothing new is under the sun. There's nothing new. We're all the same. They just want to cover up that they're the same as we are.
I'll step away from that one, but
I won't.
I hear you.
This is a little prejudice on my part, but I'm going to say it. Good Christians are good at hiding.
Yeah, and we could say a lot more about that, but we'll leave that right there.
Fair enough.
They don't reveal the lives that they actually live.
Right.
That's the reason you have so many politicians that get in trouble, so many ministers that get in trouble.
Because they're just human, like the rest of us.
Because they're actually human beings, and when the world finds out that they're human, then the world is religious, and the world is condemning, and so it's good. It's good whenever things become open and honest and truthful.
Right.
Yeah, and I think too the ability, right, on your end, Judie, to say, yeah, there were things that were hidden from me, but like, again, Eldon's just a human who was afraid to tell me, like the empathy there to say, like, we're here now, we're being honest now, like that's what's important, not that that there was something for 8 or 9 years before that.
Right. I mean, I totally understand people being afraid to share those things because, of course, the world tells us that, that's a terrible thing to do. But I don't think it's terrible. I think, and I've had conversations with people who disagree with me, but I do think there's something genetic in our genes that makes us want to be polyamorous. And that basically monogamy, and this is just my opinion, monogamy arose back when we were hunter-gatherers, nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers running around, the countryside. Nobody told anybody who they could or couldn't sleep with. If you wanted to sleep with someone, you did. And then along came someone who said, well, I don't want to share my mate. And so I think monogamy was born more out of jealousy and possessiveness than it was out of anything positive. And so basically the Romans are the ones that popularized monogamy 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. And it was not for spiritual reasons. It was for social and economic reasons. So I don't really see monogamy as a very positive thing. I think it was born out of our most negative feelings. So, I think that the polyamory is in our genes.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting that the two of you have come to a place where you're not afraid of it anymore, and you're kind of just going after it.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, when you get to be our age, there's not a lot to be afraid of anymore. There's, you don't care what people think anymore. It's just, I wish that people could learn that lesson when they're younger, that it's really not worth it to live someone else's life. Live your own life. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask both of you is it's clear that the last few months have been, we'll just say like the last 5-6 months have been very different in your relationship from the previous years. How have you seen each other change and grow over these last few months?
Wow. You know what? After the time that we got together and started doing sexual things together, Judie started writing me emails that over the past 10 years, I've never received anything like that. But she wrote an email talking about how much she loved me and how much she enjoyed me and how much she was thrilled to have my body. And I mean, it was just romantic. And so you talk about a difference. That's the main difference, is that she suddenly was truly in love with me, and that was very unusual.
Well, I have to say, a while ago when I said that being open and honest and having that open communication was an aphrodisiac, That's what I meant, because this is something that something magical happened, and I can't explain it. That I would be out running errands and driving in the car, and suddenly would say, "I'm going to go home and be with my husband. I miss him." And I didn't feel that way before. It was sort of like once you have laid bare your soul and been vulnerable, and that's sort of a bonding thing that happens. And I would write him these emails at night after he would go to bed. I would write him these emails or these poems or just little notes. And because, I just can't describe how different it felt. The open and honest communication is so important. And people don't have that in their daily lives. There's no one, even people who are married or in a relationship, often don't have that level of communication with their partner. And that's so important to having that intimacy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, no, I want to say that I told Judie this, and this is the truth. I've never slept with anyone. I've never had sex with anyone except her since we've been married.
Yet, but not that he's not willing. He just hasn't had the opportunity yet. So, ladies, if you're listening, and you live in our area, give us a call. Anyway, I'm joking, but not really.
Go ahead, Eldon. What were you finishing what you were going to say, or was there more to it?
Yes, I wanted you to know that I had not had an affair or cheated on Judie in any way. I had on my previous wives, but Judie was special and I wanted to keep her. But I just felt like there was something missing in our relationship. And that's the reason I had the conversation with her. And that's the reason all this has broken out. It's like a bomb that has gone off in our lives that is beautiful and wonderful, and it's just been fantastic. But it wasn't something we planned on; it just happened. So that's all I can say.
Yeah.
And I wanted to circle back and just ask Judie, are there ways you've seen Eldon grow over the last 6 months as well?
Well, he can be honest now. He doesn't have to be afraid to. We actually do share every thought that comes into our head, and so we'll get into bed at night and be just laying there, and I'll look over at him, and he'll be looking around, and I can tell he's thinking about something, and so I'll just say, "Well, what are you thinking about?" And so whatever he happens to be thinking about, he'll tell me whatever it is. There's no holds barred. So. I've just seen him be willing to share anything and everything. And we do that frequently. If one of us is sitting there and not talking, the other one will look at him and say, "What are you thinking?" And then we just spill whatever it is that we're thinking of, no matter what it is, good or bad. Mm-hmm. So we're not afraid now to share anything. And I really mean anything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Another question I had, I guess, was how, you say you're pretty open. You're not afraid of being who you are and what other people think. How open are you in your friends and family, and how has that gone?
Well, I am pretty open. I don't have that much family. I'm an only child. All my parents and grandparents are all dead. I just have 2 sons from a previous marriage, and they both know. And I have only maybe one family member who's still alive that doesn't know, but she probably never will because she doesn't live near us and we don't have that much contact. So as far as friends go, I post about it on my Facebook page. I post about it all the time. If people don't know by now, they haven't been paying attention to my Facebook page. He, on the other hand, I agreed that when I post the link for this on my Facebook, that I will block his family members because they don't know. Our friends of ours know, but his family members, he's afraid would be a little bit too judgy. So I've agreed to block them from saying it.
Well, you don't have to.
I don't have to?
You don't have to do that.
I thought you said you wanted me to.
I think that it's maybe a little more important to be open and honest about life than.
Okay.
And I think that perhaps they need a little bit of force.
Okay. They need a little shaking up. Well, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I guess there's no holds barred now. That, according to our previous conversation, I had agreed to block them, but I guess I'm not going to.
Love it.
So,
well, that's amazing, and like, I think just brave.
Yeah, it is.
So I give you both a lot of credit for that, and
it's all part of normalizing it all.
Yeah.
It is. It absolutely is, because nothing will change until you can talk about it. You know, it's the same thing with, like, say, mental health. It used to be nobody talked about depression or bipolar disorder, and now everybody knows what those are. You know, there's no stigma attached to having those anymore. And it's all because it came into our national conversation. It became a household word to talk about those things. And so it's got to be the same type of thing with this, you know?
Yeah. And go ahead, Eldon. Sorry.
No, I said yes. Yes, I agree with what Judie said.
Right. And I was curious, Judie, just maybe like just some logistics on, like, you've had your spontaneous grocery store Starbucks coffee date, and it's like, and it sounds like maybe some other dates as well. Like, in your conversations, it sounds like outside of people that are in your building that who have been fairly closed-minded to this, like, how have your conversations gone? And like, as somebody's willing enough to get coffee with you, I'm guessing you've shared other things with them. Like, how has it been received, and how have those conversations gone?
Well, some good and some not so good. Just like with anything, they're curious about it. They're interested in it, but some people will say right off, "Well, I could never do that." But some people are more interested, and they'll go to a second date. But mainly, I've had more success with people from the polyamory group in our city, because sure, they're looking for like-minded people, and so mainly our social life now consists of going to all these parties and group meetings from the polyamory group, because that's where we know people from that we can talk to about this. And so, there's no shortage of people to talk to about it. It is a little bit harder with people who are not of that mindset, but they're curious about it. I think that deep down, they really do want to know about it, but they're just afraid that that's socially unacceptable. But I mean, there are people who will go on a second date and who will talk about it more.
For sure. And I would just share some perspective on the grocery store incident, because I actually, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm remembering a situation that happened to me probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was at Costco buying wine, and this lady was asking me, like, "Hey, what's a good wine?" And I was like, "Well, this one's pretty good." And she's like, "Oh, well, maybe we should get a bottle and go maybe we should get a bottle together." And I was so completely like caught off guard that I didn't know what to say or do. And like, by that point, Emma and I had been in an open relationship for 5 years. So it wasn't like it was unheard of or unacceptable. I was just so caught off guard that I didn't know how to respond. So there may be some element of that as well. Also, I'm just awkward in general. So that I thought it was an amazing tactic, but I think I was so taken back by it that I didn't know what to do with it. So I appreciate the boldness, though. So good on you for that.
Yeah, it's the confidence. Confidence goes a long way, and you can be confident without being arrogant. Maybe is the best way.
Right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Just feeling like, well, this is normal for me, and so why shouldn't you come and have coffee with me? I mean,
right.
It's, we're not like doing anything we shouldn't be doing. We're just having coffee.
Right.
So
Exactly.
So anyway.
Well, I have loved this conversation. It has been absolutely incredible. And I'm so excited for where this adventure takes you. Like you're a couple of months into something so exciting, and I'm just really excited for you. And Judie, I know you have some work that you've been doing as well in podcasting and some other things. Would you be open to maybe giving us a little more information on those and where people can find that and what they can expect?
Sure. So something we haven't talked about is I'm a plus size woman. And I noticed when we were going to a lot of these polyamorous group meetings and parties and things that there were a lot of plus size women at the meetings or the parties. And I was like, well, I wonder what resources are out there for plus size women in the polyamory community. And I really didn't find that much. There's there's stuff for plus size women, but just stuff that pertains to polyamory, there's not that much. And so I thought, well, maybe I should interview some people that are polyamorous and plus size, and even people who have a disability, maybe, because I also have a disability. And how those three things intersect. It's hard enough to find a date when you're a normal person, normal in quotes, but it's harder when you're polyamorous, and it's even harder when you're plus size and polyamorous, and it's even harder when you're plus size, polyamorous, and have a disability. And so I thought, well, I think maybe, interviewing some people who have done that would be helpful to people. So I do have a podcast that's called Plus Size Polyamory. And it's you can find it on all the major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, all of those. Or you can just go to pspolyamory.podbean.com. That's PODBEAN, podbean.com.
Yep, we'll put links to everything in the show notes so people can find it. So don't sweat that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so I have the podcast. It's only got 8 episodes so far, but I'm excited to do more. So if you would like to be interviewed on my podcast, or I was thinking of doing a book as well. If I could get enough, if people didn't want to be on the podcast, but they were willing to be in the book and have me change their names, that would be okay too. Because I just think there's not enough resources out there for people in that situation. So we talk about either polyamory by itself, or being plus size by itself, or polyamory and being plus size, or, however those three things intersect for you. I would like to hear your story. So
amazing. And thank you for that work. Like, that's super powerful work. And
yeah, it's amazing
to get that out there.
Yeah. And you touch on a few things that I wanted to just, I guess, highlight before we let you go and give you the opportunity to talk about a little bit more. How have you navigated polyamory as being plus size and having a disability? Are there how has that gone for you?
So I am upfront with people when I'm talking with them. Usually I talk with them first on the internet, and obviously, if I'm in the grocery store with them, they can see what I look like. So there's nothing to hide there. But, so if I'm talking with them online, I'm up front. And first of all, I say, do you have a problem with age? I said, because I'm 60 years old. And does that bother you? And most people have said, no, age doesn't matter to me at all. And so far, all the people that I've dated have been in their 40s. So that's a very interesting dynamic. So I'm upfront that how old I am. And I say, well, I'm also a plus size. Does that bother you? Because it does offend some people or bothers them. And they say, usually most people say, at least when they're first talking to you, oh, no, that doesn't bother me. Whether they're really being truthful or not, I don't know. But that's usually what people say, because maybe they don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't know. But, so the ones that pass those 2 hurdles and are willing to go on a date to at least have coffee or something, then, maybe you have a chance at something.
Right.
Because they know up front. And I have to admit, I also feel like I'm sort of the ambassador to the plus size community, because it doesn't get talked about as much, men that are plus size. Women get a lot of talk about how objectified they are in our society and how fat shaming and all of that. But we don't talk about that a lot for men.
Right.
So if I see, a man that's got a few extra pounds, I might be more apt to go up to him and talk to him, and just because I know how he feels. And maybe not as much attention is paid to how men feel who are being, fat shamed or whatever. So I have to admit that I do often pay more attention to the ones that have a few extra pounds than the ones that are skinny, because I figure they can find all the dates they want. So, and as far as the disability part goes, there are some things that I can't do. I have degenerative disc disease with sciatica, and I have chronic kidney disease, stage 4, and diabetes. So that's a lot. And so I have to tell them up front, look, we're not going to be going horseback riding or hiking, but we can go to the movies and go out to eat and do lots of other things, just not things that are going to aggravate my condition. And most people are willing to, if it's somebody who puts on their profile that they like hiking and, all that sort of stuff, I probably wouldn't even try there, because I'm not going to be able to do any of the things that they like to do. But most people, if they get to know you and they're interested in you as a person, they're going to find ways to do things with you that you can do. So
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of it, from what you're saying, is about, just in general, putting yourself out there, being open and transparent. Hey, this is who I am. And it's either you'll attract the people that will, that you want to by doing that.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, like the courage to be sort of unapologetically yourself and to be out there is huge. And that's a really challenging thing to do. So I admire that. And thank you both for coming on the show and sharing everything. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you two wanted to make sure to get out into the world before we let you get along with your afternoon?
Not that I'm aware of. I think we've talked about everything, and I just appreciate your patience and kindness in working in doing the things that you've done. I've enjoyed your podcasts in the past. We've sat in the living room and listened to a number of them, and we've enjoyed hearing what you've had to say. And I also very much enjoy your relationship with each other. I don't know if it's that way whenever you're not in public, but you certainly have a good way of behaving with each other, and that's good.
Well, thank you. That's incredibly kind.
Yeah, and we strive for it to be all the time.
we do.
So, well, thank you both again for your honesty and openness and transparency. It's powerful.
Yeah. And was there anything on Judie on your end?
Nothing that's probably real important. I could go on and on, but we've probably hit the basics.
Well, and if you do go on and on, that's why you have your own podcast, right? And so people can
that's right.
head over there and find it. And again, the links for everything will be in the show notes, so there will be no trouble finding that. And
okay.
We're excited to get that out there. And congratulations on that work and on the new adventure you two are on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're back. A huge thank you to Judie and Eldon for reaching out to us, coming on, being vulnerable, and being so open with your story. We're so excited to get this out there.
Yeah, a huge thank you. And a quick update. We got an email from Judie the other day. As you maybe remember, they mentioned that Eldon was going to have a surgery at the end of the month that we recorded. So it was sometime in October, right at the end of October, early November, that he was having a surgery to help restore his ability to get an erection after having prostate cancer. And Judie was delighted to share that the surgery was a complete success and he has regained full capacity. He is fully capable, in all caps. So life is good in the house of Judie and Eldon. So Thank you for sharing that. And we also wanted to just remind everybody that Judie has a couple of podcasts out there. One of them is called Plus Size Polyamory, and the other one is Christian Polyamory. Links will be in the show notes. As always, please check that out if you were interested.
Yes. And again, thank you to both of you for coming on the show. A couple of quick reminders. Go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. There you can see podcast show notes for our guests. You can sign up for Patreon, all of the information there for the December calls. If you're looking for community, we'd love to have you try that out. And also we have our meet and greets coming up. So we have virtual meet and greets both on December 9th and December 17th. All of the information and to sign up is on our website. And we have an in-person meet and greet in New Orleans on February 7th. To sign up for more information as we release upcoming dates, sign up for our mailing list, also on our website. And I think that's it. So next week we have a Monday episode. We have a Monday episode with Luna. So come back and listen then.
Yeah, we're super excited about that one. Thank you all, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and take care.
Bye everyone. Thanks for listening.